Think 1972 was all Zeppelin and Deep Purple? Think again. That year also saw bands explode onto the scene with unforgettable hits, then disappear just as fast. Today, we're digging into 10 forgotten rock one-hit wonders from '72 and what made their brief moments unforgettable. They say Hold Your Head Up starts with one of the most iconic organ riffs in rock history, and they're not wrong. Argent erupted onto the charts in 1972 with that blasting intro, a gritty, soulful hook that demanded attention from the first note. It was like a lightning bolt, impossible to ignore. The song hit top 5 in both the UK and the US, and suddenly this British band seemed poised for superstardom. But then everything unraveled almost as fast as it began. Behind the scenes, internal tension simmered, creative heads clashing, egos bruised. Their record label didn't help, pushing for more hits while Argent preferred to dig deeper into complex arrangements. The result? No follow-up single packed quite the same punch. The band toured hard, played live with fiery energy, but the momentum slipped away. Critics later called it a one-off masterpiece, and fans still get chills whenever that organ solo rolls in. What's striking is how fresh and rebellious it sounds, even now, decades later. It's not just nostalgia. Hold Your Head Up feels like a defiant shout from a band that burned too bright too fast.
Never met a girl like you in my life.
You've probably heard Suavecito drifting from car stereos, backyard parties, or maybe even sampled in modern hip-hop. But back in 1972, Malo, an emerging Latin rock band from San Francisco, created a sound that felt both revolutionary and irresistibly smooth. Dubbed the Chicano national anthem, Suavecito blended soulful vocals, Santana-style guitar, and Latin percussion into something completely fresh. The song hit the Billboard Hot 100 and gave Malo a sudden burst of fame. It was romantic, funky, and hypnotic, and it sounded like nothing else on the radio at the time. But success didn't last. Internal tension, creative clashes, and a revolving door of members tore the group apart just as they were gaining momentum. Some blamed poor management, others pointed to the music industry's reluctance to fully back a bilingual Latin rock act at the time. Whatever the reason, Malo never managed to capture lightning in a bottle again. Still, Suavecito endures, featured in movies, sampled by rappers, and sung at family functions across generations. It's the kind of song that lives quietly in the background of your life, even if you don't know who made it. But don't get too comfortable, because the next band took one-hit wonder to a whole new level. The moment Motorcycle Mama revs up, you're on the back of a Harley with the wind in your face and the open road ahead. Sailcat dropped this southern rock anthem in 1972, and for a hot second, it felt like they were going to be the next big thing. The song had a gritty swagger, part road trip soundtrack, part outlaw love song. Its laid-back groove, paired with album artwork styled like a comic book, made it feel like a concept piece ahead of its time. Listeners were hooked. But here's where it all went sideways. Sailcat wasn't built to last. The duo, John Wicker and Court Pickett, had strong musical chops, but clashed creatively almost from the start. Industry insiders say the band didn't really exist outside the studio sessions. When label pressure for a follow-up hit came fast, they simply couldn't deliver. Management issues and a general lack of direction drove the final nail in the coffin. Sailcat disbanded not long after their brief spotlight. Still, Motorcycle Mama captures a specific American vibe, freedom, rebellion, and dusty backroads. It's a time capsule from the early 70s, stuck in our collective memory. And if you think that story's wild, wait until you hear about the next band's chaotic unraveling. Hot Rod Lincoln isn't just a song, it's a full-throttle tale that feels like a drag race down a winding desert highway. When Commander Cody and his Lost Planet Airmen released their turbocharged version in 1972, it roared into the top 10 with its rapid-fire lyrics, rockabilly swagger, and humor that made listeners hit repeat. It was fast, fun, and totally unexpected from a group with a name that sounded like a sci-fi spin-off. But behind that revved-up sound was a band teetering on chaos. The group had deep roots in the American roots rock scene, mixing rock, country, swing, and satire. But this genre blending also made them tough to market. They were misfits in the industry machine. And internally? The band was massive, with 9 members all pulling in different creative directions. Tensions grew. After Hot Rod Lincoln, follow-up tracks failed to capture the same spark, and as egos clashed and tours wore them down, the wheels came off. Eventually, members splintered into side projects, and Commander Cody himself became more of a cult figure than a chart-topping act. Still, Hot Rod Lincoln hasn't lost a step. It's been covered countless times, but no one's ever matched the original's manic energy. And the next hit? It was even more surprising and mysterious. There's something strangely comforting about Dancing in the Moonlight. It's one of those songs that feels like a dream, floaty, warm, and just the right amount of magical. Released in 1972 by the French-American band King Harvest, it quickly became a radio staple with its breezy melody and positive vibes. But the story behind it? Not nearly as sunny. King Harvest wasn't a band formed through years of grinding club gigs. In fact, most of its members had met while studying in Paris, and their early recordings were done across Europe with borrowed studio time and shifting lineups. Dancing in the Moonlight was originally written by Sherman Kelly after surviving a brutal mugging. He envisioned a world without violence. The band's keyboardist, his brother, brought it to life with a smooth groove and catchy chorus. The track hit big in the US, but just as fast as it rose, King Harvest faded. Their follow-up singles lacked direction, and the group never truly settled into a solid identity. They disbanded not long after their only hit, dissolving into musical footnotes. Yet somehow, this one song endured. It's been featured in movies, commercials, and endless cover versions. But the next band? They had all the momentum, and then watched it slip through their fingers. Run 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 is one of those songs that hits like a burst of caffeine, fast, punchy, and full of attitude. When Joe Gunn released it in 1972, the single took off like a rocket, climbing the charts in both the US and the UK. It had that perfect blend of driving piano riffs, gritty vocals, and a chorus that practically begged to be shouted back. Fans thought they were looking at the next great American rock band. And for a moment they were. Joe Gunn was formed by Jay Ferguson and Mark Endies after they left the psychedelic rock band Spirit. With their fresh energy and radio-ready hooks, they were supposed to be Spirit's sharper, louder cousin. But after Run Run Run, things got complicated. Internal disagreements and lineup changes slowed them down. Endies left not long after their debut, and without that original chemistry, their follow-up albums didn't stick. The band fizzled out by the mid-70s, remembered more for what could have been than what was. Still, Run 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 has this raw, foot-stomping quality that refuses to fade. It pops up in vintage playlists and cult vinyl collections, and once you hear it, it sticks. But the next hit? It was weird, global, and tangled in controversy. If you've ever heard How Do You Do, you know it's impossible to forget. That bouncy beat, the sunny back-and-forth vocals, and the weirdly infectious chorus made it feel like a celebration in song form. In 1972, Dutch duo Mouth and MacNeal stormed the US charts with this quirky pop-rock hit. It was light, catchy, and completely out of left field. Nobody expected a Dutch export to dominate American airwaves like that. But here's the twist. behind the playful vibe was a duo that couldn't stand each other. Mouth, known for his larger-than-life stage presence and booming voice, clashed constantly with the more reserved MacNeal. Their chemistry on stage was undeniable, but off stage, it was chaos. Arguments, missed shows, and creative disagreements piled up fast. And while How Do You Do became an international smash, nothing else they released caught fire the same way. By 1974, they'd officially split. MacNeal went solo and even represented the Netherlands in Eurovision, but the magic of their oddball partnership never returned. Still, that one song, so relentlessly cheerful, somehow became timeless. It shows up in everything from commercials to film soundtracks. But the next entry? It's way darker, and the story behind it shocked even seasoned rock fans.
Listen, children, to a story that was written.
One Tin Soldier isn't your typical 70s rock hit. It's haunting, moralistic, and wrapped in a fairy tale-like narrative about greed and destruction. When Coven recorded their version for the 1972 film Billy Jack, it struck a deep chord. The lyrics told a story that felt like an allegory for war, betrayal, and human nature, and it was delivered with eerie calm by lead singer Jinx Dawson, whose voice gave the song an almost spiritual weight. The track climbed the charts, and for a second, it seemed Coven had found a breakthrough. But here's where it gets wild. Most people didn't know that behind this moral anthem was a band once considered pioneers of occult rock. Coven's earlier work included imagery that would later influence bands like Black Sabbath. They even had a song called Black Sabbath before Ozzy did. Their debut album opened with a full satanic ritual, years before it was cool to be controversial. That contrast, between their image and their one big hit, confused fans and scared off mainstream support. Labels didn't know how to market them. After One Tin Soldier, they faded into cult status, far from the spotlight. Joy by Apollo 100 is what happens when classical music crashes headfirst into psychedelic rock, and somehow, it works. Built around a reimagined version of Johann Sebastian Bach's Jesu, Joy of Man's Desiring, this 1972 instrumental hit was fast, thrilling, and strangely uplifting. The song surged up the Billboard Hot 100, and for a moment, it felt like Apollo 100 had opened a whole new lane in pop music, something cerebral yet completely jam-worthy. But here's the kicker, Apollo 100 wasn't really a band in the traditional sense. It was more of a studio project led by British arranger Tom Parker. Once Joy hit, there was no real touring band to follow it up with energy or presence. The project released a few more tracks, but nothing stuck. Without a frontman or a strong group identity, Apollo 100 faded just as fast as they arrived. Still, Joy found a strange kind of afterlife. It's a perfect example of how even one instrumental, with no lyrics at all, can leave a lasting impression. But the final act in this list? It's as unexpected as they come.
Oh, it's so nice to be with you.
If 1972 had a soundtrack for sunny afternoons and easy smiles, Nice to Be With You by Gallery would be on repeat. This soft rock gem was sweet without being saccharine, an acoustic-driven love song that hit number 4 on the Billboard charts and stayed there for weeks. Its warm harmonies and breezy production made it an instant radio favorite, and Gallery suddenly found themselves opening for major acts and headlining shows across the US. But what most people didn't know was how fragile the band's success really was. Gallery was led by Jim Gold, who wrote and sang most of their material, but the rest of the group was more of a revolving door than a stable lineup. Their follow-up singles didn't capture the same charm, and without a consistent identity or fresh momentum, the band slowly slipped off the radar. Despite their brief moment in the sun, Nice to Be With You stuck around. It became one of those soft rock staples that lived on in grocery stores, road trip playlists, and throwback compilations. It wasn't edgy or rebellious, but its sincerity made it unforgettable. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, hit like and subscribe. Got a favorite forgotten hit? Share it in the comments. Thanks for watching.